All right, welcome back, YouTube. So we've got a showdown the Badlands priest review. This is all the priest cards here, so we're going to jump right into it. The first legendary, Leith Badlands Savior. It's 8 mana, 5/5 Highlander card. Battle cry: if your deck has no duplicates, summon 4/4 copies of 4 random minions in your deck. That's a pretty cool effect. This is, I think, one of the better Highlander effects that we've seen so far, and I love that it's for priest. This is pretty good. The fact that it could summon up like 4 random minions that have good death rattle effects, or those aura effects like astral, what's it called, astral automation. Getting up a bunch of those, they're going to gain the +1/+1 stat boost to it as well. Like, that's pretty insane just getting off of this alone. Um, and it costs 8 mana. It's not like a 10 mana card that does that. I think this is just a good card. The fact that it could get any good death rattles, it could get any other overheal effects. Some of those up, and you cast like one of those zero cost spells that like restore a bunch of HP, or even like a flash heal or something like that onto it. It could be a very swingy card. I don't think this is a too bad of a card for a priest, and this is kind of what priest likes to see when it comes to Highlander type stuff. It's just insane value right on in one card. I think this is what it's looking for. I think this is a really solid card. I would probably say this is a 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 star card. I definitely think this card is going to be played no matter what in a Highlander deck. Even though all the cards that we've seen so far that are Highlander versions will probably play those legendaries in it just to play them. But I think out of all of them so far, this is definitely probably one of the better ones that we've seen. Minion wise, we're not going to even talk about Reno yet. Reno's insane, but this at least is exactly like what Priest likes to do. And there are a lot of good death rattle stuff. They have uh the undead stuff, the shadow, what's it called, the shadow guy, the 3 mana 4/3 that deals 3 or 4 damage when it dies. Like, imagine getting like 2 of those, and like just any of the other good death rattle effects that priest has access to. This card will enjoy it all. So I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. It's kind of in between there. 4.5, we'll go with that. Up next is Pip the Potent, 4 mana 3/5 battle cry: copy each 1-cost card in your hand. This is a pretty interesting effect. It's 4 mana 3/5, which is a good stat line for the cost. So most decks probably don't mind running this, just the fact for the stat line. But there are a lot of new cards that are coming out that kind of revolve around adding 1-cost stuff to your hands, or 1-cost cards to your hand, as well as other 1-cost stuff that Priest has is pretty good. There's Astral Anomaly, or Automation, sorry. Light of Burns. There's also Animate Dead, Crimson Clergy, Deafen, Fan Club, Flash Heal, Holy Smite. There could be potential for an OTK with Holy Smite and Pip the Potent. Mind Scar, or Seer, I mean. Shard of Naru is good to get copied. Even like Psychic Conjure is not terrible. Like, there's a lot of really good 1-cost spells, or 1-cost cards in your hand, or that Priest has access to. I didn't even get into the neutral stuff yet. This got to be pretty good. I'm gonna right now, like, I'm not gonna give it a rating just yet until we go talk about some of the other stuff here, but I'll come back to that card when we get to the other stuff that I'm talking about. But the next card up is Pose Possession. It's 4 mana shadow spell, so a 4/4 copy of a random minion in your opponent's hand. It's not a bad spell. The fact that shadow can be discovered again, and there's like the value with like pure shadow priest or whatever, it's not terrible. And if you don't have a turn 4 play, you play this and you get a random 4/4 copy of a minion, and it could have really good death rattle effect. It could have an aura effect, or whatever it may be, and it's not completely terrible. I do think the card's pretty slow, so I'll give it a 2 out of 5. It's not too crazy. The fact that I guess there is a chance that you could hit like a Titan from it, and if you hit like a Yogg, that could probably be pretty impactful, or even like a Mana Fool or something like that, in the mirror matchup. But aside from the chances of hitting like really like impactful minions, and the fact that it just hits like Dirty Rat, or an Armor Smith, some, or not even Armor Smith. What's the other? Is it Armor Smith? I don't even know what the card's called anymore. What's the all class? Oh, where is that? Neutral. Oh yeah, Armor Vendor. I was right. But like, even getting like an Armor Vendor or something, or just like it will get the 4/4 stats, which is nice. It's not just a copy of something for 4 mana, so it's already a big impact. So I'm just gonna give it a 2 out of 5. It's not too crazy, but it could see some fit, like maybe a Control Shadow Priest. Up next, Benevolent Banker, 3 mana 2/4. Discover a spell from your deck, or Battlecry, discover a spell from your deck. Quick draw enemy, or enemy deck instead. This is a really cool effect. It's basically like Identity Thief, except you just discover something from their deck. Now it doesn't say draw, so it makes a copy. So you're not going to be thinning out the deck at all, which would have been really cool. But this is not a bad card. I think this any priest will have this card in it, whether it's control, uh, Highlander, or I guess probably not in the aggro or like the undead list, but it's not. It's definitely an interesting card, and it creates value, which I think most of the Highlander decks are wanting when they're playing those types of decks. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I think the Highlander Priest, which will probably see a good amount of play, probably play this card no matter what. So I think that's pretty solid. Thirsty Drifter, 6 mana, 4/6 taunt, cost 1 less for each 1 cost card you've played this game. Now there are some like we haven't even gotten to the new spells yet that kind of revolve around this effect yet, but the fact that it does cost 6 mana, it's a 4/6 with taunt. It's not completely terrible. I don't know how consistently you're going to be, playing 1 cost stuff that's going to make this cheaper. Like at most, this might be a 3 mana 4/6 maybe by the time you're wanting to play this. And I don't think there's going to be very many situations unless it's really late in the game when this is cost less than, or when this costs 0 or even 1 for that matter. But if you're able to like cheat this out pretty early on before turn like 6, I think this card's pretty solid. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. The fact it doesn't have any keywords though, like it doesn't have Divine Shield, doesn't have Rush, doesn't have Lifesteal, does kind of make it mediocre. And I do think it's going to suffer from the fact that it's going to be fighting for other spots in the deck, and there could be better cards that could just replace this card. So that's kind of the downside to it, I guess. So 3 out of 5. So just a first new spell that kind of revolves around adding a 1 cost card to your hand, but it's a 5 mana spell. Note that's not a holy spell or a shadow. Summon up 10 1/1 life bugs with lifesteal. Save any access in a 1 cost bottle. Now with this effect, I'm not sure if you like so. Clearly, you're guaranteed to get 7 or 3 in your hand no matter what. Now, I don't know if this means 3 individual of these spells or if you just get 1 of these and then it sums up 3 of the excess bugs from this 1 card. But if not, then you're just getting a bunch of random ones, and then it comes back to, the potent, you get like extra 1 of these. I don't know how impactful some 1/1 beasts with lifesteal are going to be for priests. The fact that they don't have charge or anything like that doesn't really like, pick my mind at all. It just seems kind of like a waste of a spell. Like I do understand the idea to copying it and having a bunch of the 1/1 light bugs, but there's so much removal in the game that it just doesn't make sense for it. And priest doesn't have any like inherent like board buffs like Crusader Aura or Bloodlust, so this kind of seems a little bit weird that priest is getting this. If they had better stats, I think it'd make more sense. Or if instead of something up 10, it kind of does the whole like the one Rainbow Death Knight spell that like has different stats and effects and different amounts of minions for however many times you spend corpse. If it had like a similar effect to that, where like you could randomly get a 5/5 light bug, a 3/2 light bug, and then the all that stuff, I think it'd be a little bit more interesting for that. Maybe if it said like summon up however many like light bugs it will take to like for the amount of 10 stats or something. I don't know if that would really be that big of a difference, but this card seems kind of mediocre. I'm gonna say 2 out of 5. I really can't imagine how this would be like impactful, especially for like the type of stuff that priest wants to do. Like, it's kind of a new archetype, but I could see this being interesting in like Highlander priest for just so it could take up a spot, and there's some lifesteal attached to it, and so there's potential to make the deck go live a little bit longer. The longevity of a Highlander deck could be heightened because of this card, but I'm gonna say it's 2 out of 5. Invasive Shadeleaf, 4 mana shadow spell. Now I think this card's a little bit better, but deal 8 damage to enemy minion. Save any access in a 1 cost bottle, and then so it's a 1 cost shadow spell, deals excess damage to a enemy minion. Now the first thing I think of this like plays on turn 4. They have a say a 4 health minion. This deals 4 damage to it, and it puts 4 damage into the bottle. Now if you copy with Pip, you're gonna get like what, an extra two of them or whatever. So you get 1 cost, deal 4 damage to it, and say they only had 1 HP, and you're gonna have a 1 cost bottle that has 7 damage in it. I think that's actually pretty solid. And the fact that it is a shadow spell, and that kind of makes like a control shadow Highlander priest or even control shadow priest way more viable because of this card, I think. Being able to discover it because it does have that keyword compared to this one. This doesn't have a holy tag to it, so kind of makes it a little bit worse, but this has a shadow tag to it, so this could have a little bit more potential to being useful with Pip and everything along the lines of that. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. I think that's pretty solid, and just the chances of having multiple like set that deals damage. The fact to it is limited to enemy minion and not just to face. So like if this dealt the big card here, if this was to a minion and this was to anywhere, I think that'd make it even better. But it's a control card. It's not completely terrible. So I'll say 4 out of 5 might be a bit steep for it. I'll say it's a 3 out of 5. It's not bad though. Tram Heist, 4 mana spell, get a copy of each card your opponent played last turn. I mean, it's kind of interesting. You could like save it for if they play like Reno, if they play like a Titan or whatever. and you can take that Titan or get a copy of the Titan and play it as well. It's kind of interesting. The fact, there are some decks that just throw down a bunch of stuff and just, play the game, and copying all that, it's really, really slow. This really only looks good to be, or it only looks decent if it's going to be up against like a control matchup against, mirror matches or even other control decks. And I don't see this really being too impactful in any other case, except for, maybe taking that one really important card or getting a copy of that one really important card to help you like stay in the game. But it doesn't really push you to a win condition. I guess there is a chance you could get something that's really, really big, like a Yogg or, whatever I said, Titan wise. It's pretty mediocre though. I'm gonna give it 2 out of 5. Up next is Injured Hauler. 3 mana, 3/7. Battlecry, deal 4 damage to this minion. Overheal, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So we're seeing a new Overheal card. It's not too bad. I honestly felt like this should have been put in the last mini set when all the Overheal stuff was introduced. And the fact that this is the only Overheal card that we've seen in this expansion, it's kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about this. The fact that, like, it does cost 3 mana and you could, like, I don't even know, heal it up with that. I guess it doesn't heal. It's just, yeah, it just summons with the bugs with the lifesteal. I don't know. This card seems kind of weird to me. I don't think that this would be too impactful. I guess there is, the location, so there's a chance to, you could potentially overheal, but you're gonna have to like spend a little bit more to get it because that odd HP. And I don't know, kind of seems a little mediocre to me. I'll give it 2 out of 5. Oh man, I don't know why I'm yawning now. Yeah, I think 2 out of 5 makes sense for it. It does deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, so I mean, there's a chance that I could remove a board, but Holy Nova does the same thing. And I guess there is no body attached to Holy Nova, but still, you have to cast more to get that effect. I think this card's just going to get outclassed by their stuff, so 2 out of 5. Holy Spring Water. 2 mana spell. 3 damage to a damaged character, saving access in a 1-cost bottle. So it's kind of, makes this card a tad bit better with that. It is a holy spell, so it does have, that bonus to it. And then all the excess is just put into another bottle, and you could copy it with Pip. I guess that makes this card just a tad bit better, but the fact that you have to like spend 5 mana for all that, or even if you play this on another guy and then you have a 1-cost one, it might not be enough to actually overheal it. So that's kind of the downside to it. I do think this card's really good just in general. I think you'd much rather play this card over playing the Injured Hauler though, and just kind of rely on the extra healings that it gives, and also the potential of getting copies of it from Pip. But aside from that, it's just kind of it's not a bad holy spell. If it would be kind of cool if they dealt, if it restore 8 HP to all characters, then any excess excess stuff will go into your hand. So there's a chance to get like 2 or 3 or 4 of these with all different healing stats. I'd much rather have that be like a 3 or 4 mana card with that effect. At 2 mana would be too broken, but since that's not the case, it's pretty average, I think. So I'll give it 2 out of 5. It's not completely bad, but let me know what you guys think about the priest stuff. I do think both legendaries are actually pretty solid, and I think that's a really solid card. Invasive Shadowleaf is not terrible, and the Holy Spring Water is pretty good. I think all of the stuff that Priest has seen is pretty solid. It's all going to be probably going towards some more of the control side of things, and I think the meta's going to slow down quite a bit with everything I've seen so far. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of the cards, what you guys think is going to be good and what's not going to be good. Don't forget to like, subscribe.